You're listening to Full Circle Weekly News of the open source community presented by Full Circle Magazine. These articles are compiled by Eric the Unready, and I'm your host, Moss Bliss. This is episode 420, covering week 26, June 23rd to 29th, 2025. IceWM 3.8.0 is now available. IceWM provides full control via keyboard shortcuts, the ability to use virtual desktops, taskbars, and application menus, and tabs can be used to group windows. The window manager is configured via a fairly simple configuration file, and themes can be used. Combining windows in the form of tabs is supported. Built-in applets for monitoring CPU memory and traffic are available. Several third-party GUIs for customization, desktop implementations, and menu editors are being developed separately. The code is written in C++ and is distributed on the GPL v2 license. GIMP 3.1.2 graphics editor is now available in the experimental 3.1 branch, which forms the functionality of the future stable GIMP 3.2 branch. The GIMP 3.2 branch is planned to support link layers and vector layers, as well as expanded support for the CMYK color model and color management capabilities. Ready-made builds are published for Linux, AppImage and Flatpak for x86 and ARM64 architectures, Mac OS, and Windows. Fedora Linux 44, scheduled for spring 2026, is planning to stop supporting 32-bit applications for the x86 architecture. If the plan is approved by the Fedora Engineering Steering Committee, the distribution will stop building packages for the i686 architecture and 32-bit libraries, Multilib, which provide compatibility with 32-bit applications in x86-64 environments. Currently, there are about 10,000 32-bit packages left in Fedora, which are mainly in demand for running Wine and 32-bit games. The distribution intends to remove the Steam package from the RPM Fusion repository, since the proprietary Steam application for GNU/Linux currently exists only in the 32-bit version and requires 32-bit dependencies to be installed on the system to run. At present, the Steam developers have not publicly announced any plans to release a 64-bit version of Steam. However, as a workaround, it will be possible to use the Flatpak version of Steam, which includes all the dependencies required to run the application. Nginx 1.29.0 has been published. In the other supported stable branch 128.x, only changes related to the elimination of serious errors and vulnerabilities are introduced. Next year, a stable branch 1.30 will be formed based off the main branch 1.29.x. The project code is written in C and is distributed under the BSD license. OpenWRT 24.10.2 has been released, developed for network devices such as routers, switches, and access points. OpenWRT supports 2,771 devices and offers a build system that simplifies cross-compilation and the creation of custom builds. These builds allow you to create ready-made firmware with the desired set of pre-installed packages optimized for specific tasks. Ready-made builds have been published for 39 target platforms. The W3C has published the third edition of the PNG image format specification with the status of a recommended standard. The new version is fully backward compatible with the second edition of the PNG specification and includes additional features such as support for high dynamic range, animated images, EXIF metadata integration, and CICP properties for defining color spaces. SUSE has released SUSE Linux Enterprise 15 SP7. The SUSE Linux Enterprise platform is the basis for products such as SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, SUSE Linux Enterprise Desktop, SUSE Linux Enterprise High Performance Computing, and SUSE Linux Enterprise High Availability Extension. The distribution can be downloaded and used for free, but access to updates and fixes is limited to a 60-day trial period. The release is available in builds for the AArch64, PPC64LE, S390X, and x86-64 architectures. The release will be supported until June 2031, not counting the extended support programs LTSS and LTSS Core, which will be valid until 2034 and 2037. Unlike previous releases, OpenSUSE Leap 15.7 is not planned to be released. OpenSUSE Leap 15.6 will be replaced by OpenSUSE Leap 16.0, which is expected to be released in the fall. OpenSUSE Leap 16 is based on the technology of the SUSE Linux Enterprise 16 branch that is currently in development but retains the features of a classic distribution that uses traditional packages. The MMC Utils 1.0 utility set has been published. It is designed for low-level configuration of MMC, eMMC, and SD memory cards from the user space. The release is marked as the first official release the project has been developing since 2012. The code is written in C and is distributed on the GPL v2 license. The utilities can be used to read the CSD, CID, and SCR registers, set write protection, set up authentication, and configure eMMC-specific features such as sector size, BKOPS, cache management, and hard reset. MMC Utils requires a system with a real MMCHCI host. Devices like USB card readers that provide access to storage cards in the form of USB mass storage are not suitable for working with these utilities, as they do not allow sending MMC commands to the device. Canonical has released its 2024 financial report, according to which revenue last year was $291 million. For comparison, in 2023 it received $251 million. The company's gross profit for 2024 was $258.3 million, and operating profit was $15.5 million. In terms of expenses, $77.5 million was spent on sales and marketing, $36.7 million on research and development, $138 million on administrative expenses. In 2024, the company employed 1,175 employees. The Cosmo GUI library is presented, supporting Wayland-based environments. Cosmo allows you to create programs with a graphical interface in C++ using an API and the style of the BIOS class library to form the interface. The library makes it possible to run programs directly in Linux that use the BIOS API. The project code is distributed on the MIT license. Cosmo offers a set of C++ classes that allow you to quickly and easily create user interfaces. On the one hand, Cosmo is much simpler and more compact than toolkits like GTK and Qt, but on the other hand, it allows you to create interfaces that look more modern than when using lightweight FLTK and Xforms. On legacy systems, Cosmo allows you to achieve very low resource consumption, and on modern ones, it allows you to squeeze maximum performance out of the hardware due to the active use of multithreading. A collection of sample applications that use Cosmo to create an interface is provided, including a terminal emulator, a style editor, and simple games. Another discussion between Linus Torvalds and Kent Overstreet, the author of Bcachefs, ended with Linus expressing a willingness to exclude the Bcachefs code from the Linux 6.17 kernel. At the same time, Linus accepted into the 6.16 kernel the changes to Bcachefs that were the subject of yet another complaint about Kent's actions. Linus wrote, quote, "I believe our paths will diverge in the 6.17 merge window. You made it very clear that I cannot question any bug fixes and should just accept everything. To be honest, I don't feel particularly comfortable being involved in all of this, and the only thing we both seemed to really agree on in the discussion was that we're done." End quote. The correspondence with Ken that preceded this statement was private, and the details are not yet clear. However, in the discussion of this topic, Kent wrote that perhaps his words in private correspondence were misinterpreted, and he does not think that Bcachefs should be excluded from the kernel. At the same time, he is ready to stop supplying Bcachefs in the main Linux kernel, and this will not kill the project, although it will be a huge problem. In case of removing Bcachefs, the development will continue and this file system will be distributed as a DKMS module. Kent also noted that excluding Bcachefs from the kernel would be the best option for his and Linus's peace of mind, but it is clearly not the best solution for users and the developer community. Nate Graham has published the latest KDE development report. The most notable change is the addition of touchpad inertial scrolling support to the KDE Framework 6.16 branch, which can be used in all scrollable areas of applications using Qt Quick. The second important innovation is the implementation in the Qt 6.10 branch of support for the Wayland protocol, XX-session-management-v1, which can be used to restore the Windows state of an interrupted session in environments based on the Wayland protocol. For example, after a composite server or application crashes. Support for the new protocol in Qt opens the door to the implementation of session restoration tools in Plasma and KDE applications. Ariadne Connell has published an initial implementation of the Wayback Layer, which allows running X11-based desktop environments using Wayland-based components. The project's code is written in C and is distributed on the MIT license, although the code file indicates public domain CC0. The project provides a composite Wayland server limited to the ability to run a full-screen X11 session using Xwayland. Wayback is being developed to simplify the transition from shipping the classic X.org server in the Alpine distribution. It is assumed that leaving in the distribution only the components necessary for Wayland and Xwayland will reduce the costs of maintaining X11 applications in Alpine. Wayback uses the WL-Roots library from the Sway project, which implements basic primitives for building compositing servers on top of Wayland. Wayback's code is based on TinyWL, the reference compositing server from the WL Roots developers, which has been stripped down to the bare minimum needed to run X-Wayland on its own. The developers of the Artix Linux distribution have presented experimental builds converted to use XLibre, a fork of the X.org server. Artix Linux is based on Arch Linux and is notable for using OpenRC, Runit, dinit, and S6 system managers instead of systemd at the user's choice. For testing, XLibre builds with the XFCE Cinnamon and Mate desktops, as well as a full build, have been created. XLibre is intended to be used in the main builds of the distribution soon. Users of existing Artix Linux installations can switch to XLibre by installing the XLibre-X server package and the necessary XLibre-XF86- drivers from the Galaxy-Gremlins repository. You've been listening to Full Circle Weekly News. For more details, see the next issue of the magazine at fullcirclemagazine.org or check the links in the show notes. You can contact me at bardmoss@pm.me. I'll see you next week.